Yes, completely
To serve only.
Serve only.
So sometimes you serve and sometimes you participate.
Because like, other people also help us, right?
So this time you serve the viewer.
Last will
So this time you experience. How was it was very deep. Wow.
All right, let's get started.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
Sure.
Let's get started. So, welcome again to the next satsang. And once again, because again, the focus of this week is, and as it should be every week, is practice, 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 practice. So again, I'll open the floor. If anyone has had any experiences that occurred to them, talk about applying the practice in day-to-day life. If they want to share any experiences, feel free. If not, okay, but go ahead.
So today when I was practicing self-inquiry, I mean I was trying to do it when I was doing other things, but somehow the tendency is, because I'm used to focusing on something only when I'm sitting in the seat of meditation.
Yes.
Right? So my tendency is to kind of sit down and then do it and not really engage in something. So it's kind of hard to break that right now. I think it's because it's the early stage of me practicing it dynamically. So
that makes sense.
That's what happened to me today.
Well, I'll just say, right, so, your point is to do the inquiry, and, again, right, if the body happens to be sitting down, it's sitting down, right? As we see, we want dynamic, but the reality is, sitting is also a position. So, if you're, ultimately, I guess what I'm getting at is if your body is going to get up, it'll get up, don't worry. If it's meant to sit down, it'll sit down. You need not deliberately stand it up and move it around just for the sake of that. If you happen to be sitting down, you could be sitting down. You know what I'm saying? The point is, right, because again, there's probably underlying that, the fear that I'm just going to be sitting down and doing nothing else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So again, that's the real issue, and that thought is what has to be subjected to the inquiry. Who has this fear? Because okay, so you're sitting down, so what? If the body needs to get up, it'll get up. If you have to go to the bathroom, you'll find your body getting up and going to the bathroom. See? So in the same way, anything else needs to get done, it'll get done. If it really needs to get done, it'll get done. However, whatever, you may not know what it is that needs to get done exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but, so, not to disagree with you completely, because I understand where you're coming from. You're used to sitting down, but just to let you know, it's okay to let that happen organically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the real issue is the fear. That's the point.
The fear of
the fear of just sitting down and not doing anything
not
else.
doing anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That. Yeah.
So it might be a little bit philosophical. When I sit in when I self-inquire, I know that the body is not I am. Okay, that is very clear. But what is the purpose of me? And when you combine with Advaita philosophy and the self-inquiry, I don't know whether I should mix it or not. But even when I know that I am different from my body, but why I am here? What is my existence? The purpose of the existence of me? That I. I have no question and no answer for that.
Well, so I'm going to say two different things. So you mentioned two different things. One is, okay, well, let me start with the second one first. I was going to say, first is Advaita versus self-inquiry. Second is this idea of purpose. So in order to know what the purpose of your existence is, it's important to know who exactly is existing. You may know you're not the body, but you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So that part, so why are you worried about what the purpose of your existence is when you don't even know what exactly is existing? You see that?
Yeah,
there's a mystery there, right?
Yeah.
So we're jumping to the idea of purpose, but you don't even know the purpose of what.
Yeah. So it's like you went into a black hole because you don't know who you are.
Correct.
I mean, for me,
Yes.
it's like undefined defining, okay? I'm trying to define something which is not existing, not defined. I mean, in my thinking process.
Well, but remember, you're experiencing it.
I'm experiencing it,
yes.
yeah.
So you're experiencing your own existence, and yet you don't know exactly what that is that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So our task is, it's somewhere in my experience, let me set about to find it in my experience. Remember, we're not talking about something which is It's not like you're asking like, oh, what is the geography of Mars or something like that, which is out of our experience. Like we're experiencing it, and it's just like, it's as if like, for example, like, you know, suppose you felt like you had a third arm, you know? You felt all the sensations. It was itching, it was cold, it was hot. You're like, well, where is it? I'm feeling it, but I search my body, I can't find it, but I feel it. But it must be coming from somewhere. You know, like it's sort of like that, a little bit, you know? The same way, you're experiencing your own existence. That's without a doubt, that's like elementary. Whatever it is you're experiencing, it's certainly the case that you're experiencing yourself as the experiencer in some way.
Yeah, but
So,
it leads to something where I don't find any answer because like, you know,
Well, no. So that's
maybe like I'm at the very initial stage, but I don't know.
Of course, no. Why would you? You're not going to get an answer for a while. The point is to do the search. It's there. Just because you don't get an answer for 1 second doesn't mean that that's the end of the search. It's like saying again, right? Like, you know, you're touching something, and I ask you what it feels like, and then you're like, oh, I can't tell, but I know I'm touching it, but I can't tell.
Yeah.
So you keep feeling it because the reason you're not getting an answer is because of the attachments.
Okay.
So it's the search, because remember, it's not, you should feel like, how could it possibly be the case that I'm literally experiencing this every second, but I cannot actually know it?
Yeah.
You should feel like that's outrageous.
But looks like even knowing is also not that much important, but experiencing is more important than this point.
Well, I mean, with the kind of knowing we're talking about is a knowing of experience.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that's to go back to your first point, Advaita Vedanta versus self-inquiry. These are not different.
Yeah, from that.
Self-inquiry is Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta is self-inquiry. If you read Advaita Vedanta, it must lead to self-inquiry. Because if you want to understand all the Mahavakyas, like, you know, Tattvamasi and all that, you know, thou art that, you know. Maharishi says, actually, you know, that is far away. That's the self, right? But the thou part is the part that's accessible.
No, the reason I asked is, I understand the Mahavakyas, it's a statement that it's, you have to accept this, that's what Mahavakya says. But self-inquiry is to find out...
No, yeah. Mahavakya is not just to accept it blindly. What are you accepting, right? To understand the statements of Advaita Vedanta, you have to do self-inquiry. When it says, you're not this, 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 therefore you are the supreme, right? What does it actually mean? Who is the you that it's referring to? We just accept it, take it like some sort of mechanical words. Like, oh yeah, of course I understand it. But you don't, because you don't know who I is in this situation. It's talking about you. It's not meant as something to just memorize and accept blindly. It's meant as a guide, like a field guide. It's like, go into the forest and find this flower that looks like this. You know, you can't, the point is not just to believe that it looks like this from the picture in the book. It's to go identify it because it's a very rare, difficult flower to find. You know, it's found by these signs. It's not in this direction, it's not in this direction, it's not in this direction. It's giving you a kind of like vocabulary with which to examine your mind. But you must examine your mind. And ultimately you must examine I. Otherwise you will not understand what it's actually talking about at all. Because it's describing a painting. It's like it's giving you a description of a painting. You cannot get the painting from the description. The description is to enable you to identify the painting once you have found it. See that? So there's a misconception that, you know, you can do it without that. This Advaita Vedanta, you will be led into this exact process.
So can we say right now we are Jivatmas and not yet reached the Paramatma stage?
I mean, you can say that if you want. I mean, you're seekers. We're seekers, basically, is the way to put it, right? But, you know, at some level, you simultaneously keep in mind that though I seem to be a seeker, I'm also, in some sense, the greater self, right? If you didn't believe that, then you couldn't think that you would actually get to that, essentially, right? So you have to kind of keep a kind of dual mentality, simultaneously knowing that I'm a seeker, but that the seeker position is provisional.
Thank you.
Sure.
I had a question.
Sure.
Let me start.
you said Mahesh or who is it?
Ramesh.
Ramesh, okay.
So my question is, right, one of the things that you mentioned is, right, look at everything as an illusion and then try to discover the self. Now, knowing that, there are three philosophies, right, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, right, some of them basically, right, I think actually Vishishtadvaita says that everything that we see in the world is real and it is a manifestation of, the Supreme's glory, right, that is one thing. So for this inner self-inquiry, right, how does that philosophy relate itself? We could even believe everything is real and then still inquire, or we have to, based on, our inquiry it rests on the fact that it is definitely an illusion. Is there any difference there?
It's not actually probably that much of a difference. The important point being, right, if you're starting with the premise that it's in some sense unreal, it's going to help you do the inquiry because you're not going to take maybe the world as seriously. But the point is, it doesn't really matter all that much what you quote unquote believe, so long as you have enough belief to pursue the inquiry. If you are motivated to keep looking for I, then you can say you believe whatever you want. You can call yourself a materialist if you want. You can call yourself an atheist if you want. It doesn't really matter. These are just words. If you're doing the practice, then you are pursuing the divine, whether you say so or not. So, these philosophies are just there to aid motivation and maybe some identification. But really, technically speaking, all the philosophies are incomplete. All the philosophies are not quite capturing the truth, including Advaita, because Advaita is just a set of words that way, right? What it's really saying is the truth is beyond words, including the words of Advaita itself. So Advaita itself cannot be complete. So all of these philosophies have some grain of truth, but are also incomplete. The point is not to get reliant on any philosophy as the truth. That said, Advaita has a lot of benefits as a philosophy in terms of motivating this kind of search, because it's giving you the grounds to believe that there is something at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, so Ribhugita says, right?
Yeah.
Ribhugita says.
Ribhugita says this. Yeah. I mean, these philosophies are all incomplete. They're not to be relied on. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. As long as you're focused on the search, as long as you believe the search is worthwhile and you're doing it, then that's what matters.
And also, right, I hear about, look at yourself being sitting in a movie theater and, watching the picture on a big screen, right?
Yeah.
Just with that analogy, right, can you just briefly summarize? One, I do understand, who is doing it, and that is the way the self-inquiry goes. And in the second one, if you kind of use the same analogy, are we saying that irrespective of what we see on the screen, we just surrender to that, even though you are a watcher? What's the subtle difference between both of them?
I'm not sure I understood the question. So
the question is, right, but so if you look at the movie analogy that one watches, right, that you
Right.
really nicely explained, right, between
Yes.
the self-inquiry and the surrender, right? In the
Yes.
surrender portion, if you're looking at still as a movie, right, you
Yeah.
surrender to the moment. Is that what it is?
What is surrender? What is surrender in the movie analogy? Surrender in the movie analogy is you keep your attention from becoming absorbed in the movie, right? You're continuously recognizing the moviness of the movie, or you can put it as you're continuously recognizing that the movie is playing on a screen, or you can put it this way, that you're continuously recognizing that you're there watching the movie. You're not in the movie. You're watching the movie. You're not in the movie. And with all these things, you're also not using your willpower on any of the things in the movie, because these are related, because if you recognize it's a movie and you're not in the movie, then why would you use your willpower on the things in the movie? It doesn't make any sense, right? So if the fire's in the movie, you're not going to go use your willpower to fetch a bucket of water to put it out, right? It's in the movie. It's not. You make that differentiation. So surrender is a continuous recognition of the non-truthiness of the movie, or you can put it this way, or your non-involvement in it, if you want to put it that way. One way or the other. The point is, you're not getting your mind sunk in it and forgetting that it's just a thought, and you're not using your willpower on it. And the continuous vigilance to keep on ensuring this is surrender.
So does that depend on your attachment in the moment, but the attachment can be both conscious and unconscious. So how do we address unconscious attachments?
Unconscious attachment will arise over time automatically. So as you do the practice, your attachments that you have not dealt with will automatically start manifesting. Because why? Because you have them. Because you have them and they will interfere with the practice. So they will automatically start revealing themselves as obstacles to the practice. And then as you notice that, you then process it using the practice, basically. So the plants will be slowly like pulled up and then uprooted automatically.
So any moment where you find a challenge in separating from, like, objectifying the experience, would that qualify as a moment where there is a blending?
Yeah.
Blending or an attachment?
You could say so, yeah, because if you're having trouble recognizing or treating this scene as merely a scene rather than reality, then you could argue, that's surrender anyway. Then you could argue that is an attachment which is interfering with that, because obviously part of you says, no, this is important that I engage with this. I can't just be treating this as if it's a movie, So I need to engage. So that's the resistance, right? Or similarly with inquiry, right? I can't do the inquiry right now. Like this is actually important, So that feeling is marker.
Yeah, can you explore that a little more? So I can't do inquiry right now because this is too important.
Right. That would be the feeling, right? Like okay, whatever. My kid is dealing with some school issue or something like that. Like I need to get him through it. It's
So you switch to doership and
yeah, exactly. You're like, self-inquiry and all that, but right now this is actually important. I can't be doing self-inquiry while I'm focused on this. This requires my real there's that feeling of like I need to actually concentrate on this.
So that's the struggle.
That's one
right?
That's one thing. I mean, it could also be that I'm really enjoying something. I don't want to do inquiry. Inquiry can take me away from this enjoyment. I just want to like immerse myself in this this pleasure, like I'm eating something delicious or whatever.
So everywhere there is some cord of attachment. There is some.
Yeah, basically.
There's a draw.
Basically,
pull.
a draw or a pull. Absolutely, all based on your identity as a person, right? So your identity as a person and the fears, the desires connected to that identity.
Okay, so I get that, but the last part of my question is, when it comes to relational, in the relational context, extending empathy or compassion to someone, at that point, how do you relate to that moment where there is?
It's the same as everything else. So the relationship you have with other people is as much part of the movie as anything else. So and the one who extends empathy is also part of the movie. So if you're extending empathy, that body-mind who's extending empathy is not you. That complex, that entity must do it by itself. We're challenging the notion that you are that entity. So there's no contradiction between your doing self-inquiry and the entity that you think you are giving empathy.
But you're assuming that the empathy is coming from the body-mind complex.
Correct. That's right. I am.
Okay.
Because empathy is an action or a feeling which is has a bound. It's some kind. It depends on what exact definition you're giving, but whatever it is, right? It's an experience of some kind. It's in time. It's in space. It has biological and psychological components. It's definitely part of the body-mind complex by our definitions.
So how about compassion?
All of these things, same thing.
Everything.
All qualities, all good qualities are all bounded things. What we're looking for is beyond bounds. It's not, it's not characterizable, it's not quantifiable, it's not qualifiable.
So by your definition, an evil act, or what we call evil act, is the same as a compassionate act.
Well, it's not the same as a compassionate act, but what it is that they are both equally the self. That's what you could say, and the self is beyond good and evil.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
that's
floating from the
clearly
self
true.
itself.
That's clearly true. Because, you could question, of course, whether the self, if one finds the self, are there actions at all? This is a very interesting question. Right? Our notions of good and evil are themselves founded on a limited view of things. That limited view is based on the idea that I'm an individual atomic entity inside here, contrasted with a world out there. That view is incorrect. And so, if once that view is challenged, our notions of good and evil may also be challenged. Our notions of time and space, not just good and evil, our notions of everything. This is like a kitchen sink, right? You hit this point, and everything then collapses into it.
We also talked about the practices of moral values.
Yeah, that's for a seeker. So a seeker seeking to quiet their mind might be moral as a way of quieting the mind.
Okay. By extension, though, then if you practice the moral values and you quieten the mind, you get closer to the realization of the self.
Yes. That's fine. That's okay. Because that's all provisional, though. It's not saying that's the self. It's just saying, as a seeker, the body-mind is quieted by living a certain kind of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. That lifestyle might be a moral lifestyle, because it invites less intrapersonal, less interpersonal conflict. And so then you have more bandwidth for the practice. But it doesn't mean the self as a capital S is that.
Got it. So, Sriram, you had a question?
So in terms of just sustaining the practice, so what kind of guidance would you have? So now in just exploring this, the little things that we do for pleasure, watching a good movie, all that, right? So there is that part of it, and then there is also the other things that pull you down, like work pressure, all kinds. I mean, your interaction with people who drive you crazy, all those things. So in this terrain, so can you kind of give some guidance on how to sustain this practice? And you just mentioned that even if I'm watching a good movie that I'm enjoying, right? You're the self-inquiry has to happen. So I'm trying to see, and we discussed this during the meditation session. When things are not going that well, it becomes easier to practice, right? Because you want
for many people, not everybody, but for many people.
So some guidance on, just living, how do we, sustain the practice?
The best guidance is start doing the practice and start seeing where you start stumbling. Because that's going to.
When you say start doing the practice means, just keep on.
Start with the intention of, I want to do this all the time. And then watch what actually happens, right? And as you do that, you're going to start seeing where it's harder to do it, under what circumstances. And then that's going to give you a clue as to what your attachments are. And then, and then it's going to be a matter of how to deal with these, basically.
So is that what? So today I was experimenting. I went for a walk, and then while walking, I was trying to see. And then suddenly the mind goes away somewhere, right?
Okay.
So it's not because I'm not able to relate to some attachment there. I don't know
where did your mind go?
I don't know. It just wanders. It's its nature.
Okay,
right? It just
that's
wanders.
okay. That's okay. So now you know your mind this is the beginning, right? So you start to notice your mind wandering. Now your mind is going to wander. So next time you're on your walk, you're going to be a little more attentive. Like, oh, where's my mind wandering? You can start asking where is it going? What is my mind thinking? You're going to start to notice as you do it more and more, like it's like a plane that starts up at like 60,000 feet and slowly starts descending. And you're going to see the landscape of the mind more and more sharply over time. And you'll see, oh yeah, okay, well, I thought it was just going blank, but actually I had this concern, that concern. I thought about yesterday, and I thought about this friend, and I thought about that person, and whatever, like the concerns will come more into focus.
So the to-do list.
Yeah, to-do list or whatever it is bothering you, or exactly, that's.
And so the way you bring it back is, so you just keep reminding yourself.
Just keep reminding yourself. As you start seeing the themes, okay, that's going to give you the information to proceed. Because if you start seeing, okay, there's these situations, right, then you can start thinking about them. And also seeing, right, like you can either address them directly with the practice, or in certain cases you may say, I need to make certain changes, like because there is stepping back from the practice. If there's certain barriers to the practice that are very resistant, right, you may have to deal with them at a non-practice level, right? So for example, it may be the case that you know, there is I don't know, let's say the work situation or something like that. May need to change your work situation, perhaps, right? There's certain things that you have to do to quiet the mind. The practice is not always the only or best way to do that. So, you know, in certain situations, you cannot do the practice because this other piece of your life is not dealt with enough or correctly, right? And so you may have to deal with it in that way. Just like, for example, if you're super hungry, I think I mentioned right the other day, you know, you could technically deal with that through the practice, being like, okay, who's feeling the hunger? Who's feeling this hunger? It's true, you can do that. But in practical terms, it may be much better just to eat something. You know, so you have to decide, sometimes there's certain things like that in your life where there's certain needs that are not being met, you know? And you may need to meet those needs to give your mind the sufficient quietness to pursue the practice. So when you see these themes emerge, you'll decide that. Sorry, I'll go with the Shriram and then Raj.
Oh, I want to go back to the analogy of the movie. So I had a brilliant idea. So I just want your opinion. So when I go to a movie,
Even if it is self-proclaimed.
Please decide.
if I go to a movie, I want entertainment. So the point is, if I keep reminding myself it's just a movie, it's just a movie, then I'm not permitting myself to enjoy it.
That's right.
So perhaps a strategy could be to say, okay, for the next 3 hours, I'll forget that it's unreal or it's something separate. I'll allow myself to be engrossed in it. I'll put an alarm or a snooze. After 3 hours, I'll wake up to reality. And as an extension, perhaps you are doing it right now. Perhaps before we acquired this body at the moment of birth, maybe we decided, okay, I want to enjoy this experience.
Well, look, I mean, you can allow yourself to do that, and maybe for a while, it's, you know, it's a way of moderately getting into the practice in a more moderate way, right? If you feel like you cannot do it kind of whole hog, so to say. But the reality is, right, what we're trying to do in this is move away from the attachments, basically. And so, you know, attachment to pleasure is an attachment. And so, unfortunately, you know, it's a nice idea. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like every attachment has to be completely broken, but just recognize, right, that if there is this, because the point is, right, we're looking for pleasure through the movie, and the point of this exercise, the practice is, there's a well of happiness inside,
so,
which is being hidden by.
Along the same line, so I get your point about trying to get pleasure from the movie. One of the things that we see in the scriptures, like rather than trying to get pleasure out of it, so to put it in different words, do not expect joy, express joy. So use this platform as a way not to gather experience of joy, but be a joyful person first, and use this place as a way to express the joy that you find within. Is that?
But who's
Well,
expressing the
exactly,
joy?
that's right, precisely. So can I get a little more hot water, please? So much.
Want me to bring it?
Sorry, I'm a little
Go ahead.
allergy.
No problem.
Oh, thank you so much, sorry. Yeah, so expression of joy is still an action. We're trying to get beyond action, basically.
Yeah. I feel that today I was practicing something, you know, and I thought like, so I also enjoy and also I am also observing. It's like just like showing affection. I can show affection towards multiple people at the same time. Likewise, that's a stronger divine quality, to have affection towards everybody. The same way, it is not like just because I am very affectionate towards somebody, I cannot be affectionate towards somebody else, and that it's divided, nothing of the sort. So likewise, this enjoyment of my music, and then observership is also ingrained in it, and also I am also observing and also enjoying, kind of a bundled up kind of a thing for me.
I mean, yeah, you can think of it that way. So one way you can think of it as, again, right, is, you know, you can view Gita, again, right, as being over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gita can be enjoying her music. Gita can enjoy the music, but you're not her. So your job is to stay on the inquiry or the surrender.
Yeah, like I am the root. Yeah.
While you are focusing on the inquiry or surrender, she can enjoy the music.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
Yeah.
So, but your mind is focused in one way. So, because just like the body and the mind can do everything else, they can also enjoy. It's just that there's a desire to identify with the enjoyer. That's the problem.
Like I also feel I cannot enjoy unless the observer is also I'm bringing the root is my observer. So this enjoyment is also like coming from the observer, because everything is the root. From like all the things that I feel, all the things I do, everything is. I feel that it's coming like observer knows it, and I am the observer. Right. I am the observer kind of a feeling. Because
right, but what we're trying to do in the practice is, instead of the observer focused on those objects, the observer is focused on chasing itself. So those other things turn to darkness in some sense. They may be happening at some level. Maybe. It's a philosophical question. Are they happening? Aren't they happening? Who knows? But your focus, if you want truth is, you have to focus on turning inside, basically.
So you need to maintain the equanimity. The observer maintains the equanimity, whether it is enjoyment or sadness, anything, doesn't matter for the observer. Like Gitaji is telling, the moment you are identifying with the object, you are not the observer anymore. Okay.
No, I don't identify with object.
Because when you say that, as an observer I am enjoying, observer doesn't have any inclination to enjoyment or aversion or craving. He just observes as is.
That's right.
So that's what equanimity.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, the observer can observe a mind which is full of emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But so observer won't.
But the observer itself, of course, it does not. Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, it only fools itself into thinking it does.
I feel that maybe just like Vishnu is aware of all the actions going on, but he knows that it's going on, but he is not paying attention. At the same time, the slight attention is there too, kind of a feeling.
I mean, yes, perhaps there might be, but the job for a seeker is don't worry about the slight attention part. Let that slip in.
Not slight attention. What I mean
Thank you
is
so much.
it is happening in my platform. That's a kind of a thing. And then I am the platform.
Yeah, I mean, but what I'm trying to say is, you may be the platform, but your concern is not to worry about the objects on it.
No, I'm not worried about it. But also, I am completely aware of the being in the platform. I am completely aware of it, and I am the platform. I am a Sakshi Bhava. I am the platform observer.
But we don't want to stop there, because the idea that I am the platform, or the idea that I am the witness of these objects, is itself still an idea.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. What we want to do is we want to actually hunt down what that I is. We don't want to, otherwise we get stuck. That's a position. I am the observer of these objects is still a position, actually. So we want to get beyond that idea as well. The only way to do it is to keep turning away from the objects.
Yes.
Keep turning, even from that idea, because the true witness does not have the idea that I'm the witness. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But now I came to, I inquired and I came to a conclusion, I am the root, where I know that all these thoughts, all the evil things, all the things I see, everything is sprouting from
this is another thought. This is itself another thought.
Yeah.
So who's observing that? Huh?
So the characteristics of the objects doesn't affect the observer.
The characteristics of the objects, correct, that's right.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, we don't get that point, because every time we get into the trap, like Gita said, oh, I'm enjoying, I'm enjoying the body is enjoying, it that itself is an effect of the character, but it has to reach a point where we are completely neutral, whatever the characteristics of each object we are seeing, the observer should not be affected by any of those things.
I mean, in fact, the observer is not affected by any of those things, right? There's merely the notion that it's affected, that's all. So we're just detaching ourselves from the idea, the incorrect idea that we are in fact affected by these things, because we're not affected by these things, actually. So it cannot be affected. Again, the person who sits in the cinema cannot be affected by the fire on the screen. It's impossible. There's only the delusion of being affected by it. So, you know, in the same way, the observer cannot be colored actually by any of the experiences. He was just trying to get away from the idea. Thank you so much. So Raj, you had a question.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that from a perspective of practicing sadhana, I was thinking if I'm placed in front of a TV screen and about to watch a movie, and if I go into self-inquiry, so there can be two outcomes, and correct me if this is the right way of thinking. I'm completely in self-inquiry, that's my only commitment. My commitment is not to watch the movie, but I'm looking at the movie. So when I'm in self-inquiry, perfect self-inquiry if you would, two things can happen. I may not know what happened in the movie at all, or my body-mind might grasp the entire movie end to end, and I have to surrender to either outcome. Right?
Yes, exactly.
That's have I got that right? Okay.
Exactly.
So
Right.
that's
Precisely.
Not necessary though. I disagree there.
Tell me.
So I watch sports and I also do the self-inquiry at the same time.
You might try to be. You know that's the danger, because if you do that, you might be involved in that, and at the same time you think you're practicing self-inquiry, you may not be practicing.
No, I'm not. So this
maybe
is
sneaking
I'm
that.
telling you what my experience.
Okay.
Actually, when I say I used to be so like the Warriors game, you know, I get so involved. I get upset when they lose. Now I don't get upset anymore. I'm trying to say, hey, they are only the game, I am watching it. So once I start getting into that thing, I watch the game at the same time, I am also observing, I am not the guy who is watching it. So it works for me, and I don't get too attached if they lose or win, it doesn't bother me also now.
That's okay, that's slightly different. It wouldn't bother me also if I go into awareness mode. But this is self-inquiry, and I want to make sure I'm not dropping the self-inquiry when engaging in the Warriors game.
Right.
And seeing the Warriors are winning, you have an opinion on who should win. So I'm just wanting to see if are we getting involved in some thoughts. You may not be upset by it. You know, it's a game.
No. Yeah.
That's different from. Are you stepping away from self-inquiry?
It's a question of self-inquiry. What do you do self-inquiry? So that's the difference of my way of self-inquiry is I am just observing also when I do self-inquiry who is watching. But at the same time, you are going to be stopped there somewhere. So at the same, I am trying to. It's like a half surrender, half self-inquiry type more.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. See what you're in the traditional Viveka Vairagya mode. In the Viveka Vairagya mode, I would agree that's the traditional Vedanta part is Viveka and Vairagya, right? Hey, this is thing, and so I can continue. But I thought what Akilesh is saying is a little bit more. The next step to that.
I think you're right. So look, I think there's also what you're pointing to really is there's also degrees of intensity. You see, so when you are incredibly, I think I gave that yesterday, probably that pot of water example again, right? So that's the ideal level of intensity. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is always going to be able to attain that at all times. But when we are totally invested in inquiry or surrender, then in some sense, right, again, the Gita verse I'll quote, right, which is that, the wise person is awake to that to which the world is asleep, and is asleep to that to which the world is awake. What does that mean? It means the world is not paid attention to. The focus is so intense, like a laser beam. It's like a laser beam on the inner search, basically. So, that said, it may not always be like that.
So your point is that you cannot be in the in-between state.
No, I mean, you can be. It's just, it's not as good.
It's impossible to be so intense all the time. The intensity cannot be sustained if you go so much. So partial, like the half mode,
partial is better than nothing.
Continuously.
Partial is better than nothing. Don't get me wrong. Half a loaf of bread is better than zero. So I totally agree. But the aim should be intensity, of course, because...
So, the reason I am saying that is like walking example. I can sustain it for, I understood as a continuous meditative mode. It's like a partial only. If you cannot be, unless you realize yourself, you cannot go in the 100% intense mode. It doesn't work.
Well, it's maybe like an asymptote or something like that. It may not be at 100%, but how much can you get to?
Right.
Because when the desire is intense, right? Then naturally the attention will also be intense.
Correct. I'm not disputing that point. But until you realize, see, you cannot do 24 hours that way. It doesn't work.
Well, how much can you do is the question.
Yeah. So you do periodically, and then say, but I don't want to at the same time when I do anything. If you want to be on the inquiry mode or surrender mode all the time. This works for me. For me, it works. That's
Sure.
What does
No, I mean...
What does work mean? Work mean we have to get liberated, right? That's what working for
Yeah,
me
say
means.
you go to office, right? So you're doing office work
So this is what I
also.
was discussing with him in the morning also, right? I have to be ready to be laid off from my office, lose
No, you can
everything.
do
I
that.
have to just do inquiry and surrender. Not my problem if the work gets done.
I understand. I have tried that also. The
No,
problem
I'm not
is-
tried it. I'm just
No,
saying.
I have tried that. See, because I'm at my stage of my career. If it goes, goes.
Yeah.
That's why I can easily do that. But younger people is harder to do
No,
because
no,
if
so
you-
then you have to pick something that's harder to do for you. Not the office work. So you have to go on to a different challenge.
Yeah.
So, because like I said, for diving it's easy for me to do that, right? So,
correct. I got it.
Yeah, because the thing is, we want, even before you get the goal, right? We're trying to drive ourselves through this process to the level of just incredible hunger for this, right? When we want it so badly, then we think of nothing but this,
See, but right now we are floating halfway.
Yeah.
We still want the
I know.
attachments, we
I
still
know.
want the
I know.
enjoyment. So
I
it's,
know.
I mean, I think it's
Exactly.
that. So,
So you do the best you
Yeah,
can.
that's what I'm
That's all you can
trying to
do.
say.
You do the best you
Exactly.
can. Whatever the best you can do is what you do. That's all you can do.
And-
at least we can call the bullshit in us when we can.
Exactly.
That's all we
So
are.
we shouldn't complain. Continue to enjoy, but don't whine.
I think what we want is like smaller milestones that we can celebrate.
Exactly.
You don't want to make us that. You're just saying it's all or nothing.
He gave us, he
No,
said,
no, you
We are
will.
still
You will.
in the gray zones,
he gave us a way out, right? He said, go step into Karma Yoga of Gita. That's an easy way.
That's also
It's
true.
like, I feel
That's
like
also
it can coexist, you can weaken that, but this is more intense, like alignment or
Yeah.
enhancement. This is more practice, and this one I was enjoying the music, but I thought, okay, I am doing it, but I am not paying much attention. I am only aware that I am doing it, that's all, to that level.
Here's the way you can look at it, right? You have a journey of 1,000 miles. You can go 1 mile an hour, or you can go at 50.
Yeah.
I mean, your choice.
but slow and steady wins the race.
But
I mean,
Akilesh,
yeah.
Akilesh, the biggest trap is the sattvic state, right? The sattva is such a blissful place that you'll just park there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you won't do anything. Oh, I do my pranayama, I do my meditation. I mean,
Yeah.
just, why should I do anything else?
That's another issue.
Why do I need to do anything else? Kind
That's
of thing,
another
right?
issue.
So that's the trap.
So, but now, like I think
One second.
there you have to put effort. Even for the pranayama,
Yes,
earlier
yes,
it wasn't,
you do. Correct.
think, okay, if I
Yes.
don't get
Yes.
onto my yoga mat and
Yes.
spend 45
Yeah.
minutes with the
Abhyasa
timer,
is-
it
Yeah,
is
basic
all
to
this, right? So
foundation.
now that is relaxing this inquiry. So the excuse, oh, I'm practicing inquiry, so I don't have to spend 45 minutes on the mat, right? I mean, so that's working for me.
That's another thing. So that's helpful. Which question?
It's a really a new trap.
Yeah, you trap.
Krishna.
No, Abhyasa is
Yes.
the basic.
One second. Like, is there a
So
question?
this all or nothing paradox that we were talking about just now. So I attended a funeral yesterday, and I'll be attending another one tomorrow. So this week has been kind of like the term Smrashana Vairagya, right?
I don't actually
Or
know
maybe you
that
don't.
term.
Okay. But you can translate that to sort of existential angst, right? So now my struggle is, how do I do inquiry into? I mean, I'm trying to do inquiry into existential angst, and I'm also trying to do the whole surrender inquiry thing during these funerals, while at the same time being aware of my own. I mean, there is multiple things going on. There's emotions that are coming up, which are easy for me because in the sense I can observe the emotion. So I observe the wave of grief. And I'm like, okay, that's just Savita that's grieving for the loss of this person.
Yeah.
And then I can make space for it to flow. So that's the easy part. But then there's also this wave of angst.
Sure.
Right, which is the existential angst that
Yes.
is generated by seeing someone dead
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yeah.
So what is the place of inquiry here? What?
It's exactly the same as everything else, right? Who's experiencing this? Because the point is, existential angst about horrors of death are affecting you because you feel like you're the one who is experiencing those fears, and your friend, and your relationship, and your own mortality that's being touched upon indirectly, and all of that, right? You. It's all about you. I mean, that's how it is for all of us, right? So, the question is, who are you, really, right?
So I get that cognitively, right? Cognitively, I get
No, but
that.
experientially.
But experientially,
That's what
so
I'm
how do
talking
I
about.
translate that to
Practice.
The translation is literally, where am I? That is the observer of these states of, for example, angst. Where is the observer? Find the observer. That's the experiential movement. Like, I'm here observing my own existential horror. But what is me? What is the observer who's observing it? Find it, show me. Where is it? Where am I? I know I'm here, but where? How? That.
And how
That
well
continuous
so-
movement. That continuous movement towards, again, the one who's looking. Where is the looker? Where is the looker? Where is the looker? Where am I? I who am searching. I the searcher. Where am I? I who know I'm here. Unable to find myself.
and there's a wave of grief that I'm not able to find myself also. Who is that grieving?
Well,
Who is that?
either way, who's experiencing it? Exactly. Who's that grieving? Precisely. Who's upset they can't find themselves? I am. Again, who am I? So it's all coming back to this sense of, I'm here in some way that I cannot articulate, and I know I'm here, but in some way that I cannot find, but I'm here, but I'm here, but I'm here. So, I must somehow know this by some means, by some channel. It must be there somewhere. Somehow, it's here. I must find it. Like that. I must turn my attention again and again, looking for that sense, the sense that I'm here. I have the sense. It's somewhere. It must be coming from somewhere. It's here somewhere. Again and again and again and again and again. Look for it, because whatever's happening, all the impossible to find, feelings, grief, or whatever it is, frustration, they're all occurring to me. I'm the observer of all of these states.
Yes.
So I know I'm the observer of these states. So that knowledge of I am the observer, that piece of information, that light, that data, that, knowledge, is shining somehow, somewhere in my experience. And my job is to, cut away the rest of the stuff that's irrelevant to it and see if I can isolate it. What exactly is this element in itself? This I part minus all the stuff that it keeps getting mixed with it, essentially. We're trying to mentally cut away all those other elements and just focus on what remains. What is it that remains? When I cut out everything else, what is it that remains? What is it that remains?
And then there's a thought that this will eventually get resolved in time.
That's also experience.
What do you mean resolved in time?
Like, at some time in the future, I'll be in that box.
Yeah, it might be, but not without effort. it will come through the natural process of effort.
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying like when I die, I'll meet me at that point, right?
Oh, well, that's making big assumptions, of course.
That's an assumption.
Big assumptions. Exactly.
So that's also a
Yes,
trick of the mind.
Yeah, of
I
course.
never dies.
Of course.
No, but
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
also-
The body dies.
That's again what you've been told.
Yeah, what we
So
do
that's-
precisely.
Yeah, not in your experience.
Exactly.
So Raj mentioned two cases of inquiry. One with respect to watching the movie. right?
Movie.
So first case he mentioned that when he watched the movie, but you are not attached to what's happening because he is completely absorbed into the self-inquiry.
Yeah.
The second case where you watch the movie, but you are in self-inquiry, like you are not affected. You are observing and understanding everything, but you are not affected by that.
Yeah.
But I think the first case is not the one because the observer is always have the awareness of what's going on. I think the second case is the more relevant rather than, more.
It's not necessarily, these things can work in very strange ways, right? Like, but we take a simple example from our experience, right? We are driving someplace and then we suddenly arrive there, right? Like our mind has been somewhere else. But then obviously some part of us at some level was paying enough attention to get us to our destination. We don't even remember how we got here, but we did, right? So what is that? It just goes to show that so many of the functions that we assume are conscious or unconscious actually, or capable of being unconscious anyway. And so it's quite possible that one is not aware in the normal sense, but that the functions go on anyway.
Yeah, but the inquiry, when we are doing the inquiry, the observers might not be affected by what's happening, but he still be aware of what's going on. There is a difference between being aware but being not affected.
Well, as I'm saying, it completely depends. Like, I mean, I agree, the observer can seem to be aware, but when one focuses very, very intensely on something, what happens is everything else disappears. You must have this experience. So, you know, like, yeah, you focus on a book intensely, you focus on a person intensely, everything else is blanks out, basically.
But if you, but the question is here is if you are intensely focusing, then you are being attached to the object, then...
Well, no, but we're intensely focusing on the inquiry, which is different.
Okay, not on the object.
Nothing else,
Not on
exactly.
the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So this awe and the concept, this whole, now it's a big deal, right, in neuroscience and everything, and even the concept of awe. So AWE, you know,
What is the name? Sorry.
you know, so it is, yeah, so, you know, whatever, right, in psychology, our Anandamaya Kosha, you know, is loosely translated as, you know, being in a state of awe, and now, you know, awe walk, I mean, everywhere, it's all a big, you know, thing, to find these moments of awe in a day, I mean, whether it is, you know, like, a little
aha,
you know,
moment.
not aha, not aha, it is
Something
like
like a bliss.
being one, you know, being bliss, you know, like Mount Madonna,
Yeah.
sunrise, sunset, or Aarti, or whatever, right? Some of those where you're immersed in it, this immersive moments. So, and then they say you need to find, I mean, for your well-being and everything, that's what neuroscience and psychology and all is, you know, like there's a lot of stuff going on. So in this self-inquiry, even if it is these moments of awe and everything, it is in the outside.
100%.
You have to go past under my kosha, right?
Exactly, right,
Yes.
exactly,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
It's not different.
So, and then the other thing that I'm also realizing, which is now resonating with what you say, concepts that we've learned, right, whether it is through, you know, philosophy, scriptures, all this, they are a big bondage right now,
Yeah,
right? I
exactly.
mean, you know, so you just have to undo or wipe out, you know, clean, you know, like totally you should have amnesia before, and then I think that would be such a blessing, you know, to get to the path of inquiry. That's what is my...
I mean,
agree.
if you feel that way, you can absolutely do it. I mean, you just need enough to keep you on the path. Everything else can be dispensed with, basically.
Because we've been stuffed with all that information, right? Even
So
when
lot
you
of
go find
knowledge.
that, and I'm like, I'm bliss. All that is like being suggested to you by all the scriptures.
No, but that is required up to some point, then we need to get
Like,
drop in.
I'm saying, like she
See,
said,
there's-
right? That is kind of an
So,
imperative
but
thing
now
to
it should
practice
become-
right now, because
Yeah, I
think you read
kind
a
of have to
verse.
discover
Yes,
all
I
that.
read a verse.
Yeah,
I read a verse.
And then, you know, you never know. Life situation changes. You will need all those tools to bring you back to the stage that you are in.
Vijay, there's a Gita, there's a verse that...
Yeah, there's a verse. There's a verse. I read
And
it.
also
I read it.
all,
33 or
right?
34 or something.
Yeah.
34.
So like because
Yes.
there might be moment where, you know, like just like the Jogari window, you first square you will be moved back anytime, and when you are in the again, you know, you think the mind can go,
Snake and ladder.
but when you are in that moment and all the practices you can apply it, and very quickly you will come back to the Anandamaya Kosha or Ananda Kosha, whatever, you know, where you are at currently. So the practices can be dropped, right? But the practices can be needed, but when you really slip off.
I think they mean
I'm
the
not
theory.
I'm talking about the philosophy, the concepts.
Yeah, those concepts.
Okay, all this, you know, like Purusha Prakriti, you know, all,
Yeah, yeah,
that's what
all
he's-
this,
he's
and then
about to read that.
Yeah, I'll just read really
Atman,
quickly
you know,
relevant to
yes,
this,
so-
right? 34, which I read the other day anyway. Verse 34 of the Ulugda Arpa, Narpa, the Arvandam says, for unlearned folk, there's only one family consisting of wife, children, and dependents. But in the mind of those with much learning, there are many families of books, theories, and opinions as obstacles to yoga. So, to your
And
example.
Osborne, you know, like the teachings of Maharishi, so in that he mentions, or at least Maharishi apparently said this, right? So when you have knowledge and concepts and, you know, all this, you know,
This is
literature,
what she
philosophy and everything, that leads to, you know, ego. I mean, he gives so many things, you know, that lead to more suffering. It's under the thing, there's a topic, you know, suffering, you know, like under that. Whereas someone who's ignorant, you know, like, I mean, or has no such thing, you know, it is more straightforward.
In fact, this is one of the Shiva Sutras, is also that knowledge binds.
That's a 35.
Yeah, sorry, exactly.
That's one of the Shiva Sutras.
Yeah, precisely. 35.
Is that 35? Is that? Okay.
35 says, what is the use
You
of...
said about
Wait,
34,
isn't-
right? Before.
Isn't that like you use a ladder to climb the building and then you kick the ladder off?
Yeah, that's also
That's
another
one way to look at it.
Point
See,
of, I
theory,
don't need the ladder.
But
it's
but
a
some
little...
don't even need all this.
Yeah, it's
The
You may
innocence-
have needed it.
It's
at that
individual,
moment.
basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
Some people, see, basically, theory has two purposes. One is to motivate you to do the practice. The other is, there's a little bit of theory, you might say tiny touch, for most people required, just help them, once they get to these subtle realms of experience, to help them recognize what's going on at that moment, right? That tiny bit of like, thou art that or something like that will click, right? Saying it's bliss, it'll just click. It'll click at the right moment. So that tiny bit is helpful.
No, I think in the path of self-inquiry, where you're starting from the fundamentals, that is where, I mean, otherwise, until you reach the path of self-inquiry, all those, there's a sequence, right? And you have to go through the physical asanas, the same ashtanga.
Sure.
But in this, what I'm finding is after having gone through, or at least attempted to be on the ladder, now, trying to undo, like when you practice self-inquiry, those are useless, right? I mean, so.
Yeah, true. That's true.
But those are not required for some people like Ramana.
Right, exactly. Not everybody has the same amount of theory. Some people need more theory than others. Some people, some people depend on more.
Like they say that Arjuna versus Uddhava. Uddhava is already in a very high stage. He needed only the very important moksha chapters, some chapters, Vishwarupa Darsana chapters only are explained to Uddhava because his stage is like that. Whereas Arjuna, an ordinary warrior, and then he has to really come to. That's a kind of.
Requires a lot of theory, exactly. So with that, let's just read just a couple of verses. Let's keep going on our
on 15.
Verse 15. Okay, let's read 15. Read 15. Let's start with 15. 15 says. So not realizing that they themselves. So not realizing. Not realizing that they themselves are moved by an energy not their own. Some fools are busy seeking miraculous powers. Their antics are like the boasting of a cripple who says to his friends, "If you raise me to my feet, these enemies are nothing before me." So basically the idea is that seeking miraculous powers is very superfluous when it all comes from the self, right? The self is the repository of everything important. So why are we seeking, it's like these stories about, like Aladdin or something like that, the cave of treasures, right? And the real treasure is the lamp, right? The lamp which grants wishes. But all the way from here to there, there's a whole bunch of increasingly tempting treasures. And he's been told, don't touch any of them. All of them lead to death, basically, right? But stupid people, right, they get more and more jewels, more and more beautiful things, right? And eventually, of course, they inevitably touch something. Only Aladdin is smart enough to go all the way to the end and touch just the old rusty lamp, which looks like it's nothing at all. But actually, that's the true source of power. So, Ramana is cautioning here against seeking, miraculous powers. He says 16, the same thing. He says, since the stilling of the mind is true liberation, and miraculous powers are unattainable without an act of the mind, how can they whose mind is set on such powers enter the bliss of liberation, which is the ending of all activity of the mind? So again, if you're focused on seeking powers of any kind, basically, then, if you're using your willpower towards that end, then you're not doing the practice and you're cheating yourself, basically. Essentially is what he's saying. 17, I like this, because I think I mentioned this actually. I was looking for this verse, I couldn't find it the other day. 17 says, while God sustains the burden of the world, the spurious ego assumes its burden, grimacing like an image on a tower, seeming to support it. If the traveler in a carriage, which can carry any weight, does not lay his luggage down, but carries it painfully on his head, whose is the fault? Yeah, so two images are given here. One is, again, like some kind of creature which seems to be holding a building up, right?
It's called Koval Bomai.
Gobara Bomai. They have the same thing in cathedrals in the Western Europe, gargoyles, right? That seem to be holding the church up. But of course they're doing nothing of the kind. They're just carvings on the outside. They have zero structural and then, power at all. Mm-hmm. So humans are in the same position. Like, I'm making things happen. Yeah. It's exactly the same. They're zero, right? Actual effect. And similarly with this famous image of the carriage, he says, why you're holding your luggage on your head. Because the train is going to take you where the train is going to take you. Whether you hold your luggage on your head or not, it doesn't matter. So just put it down. Relax. You're going to get to your destination. The destination that has been fated for you, you'll get there, whether you like it or not. And this is the truth. I mean, this is, we've all seen it in our lives if we really
I
are
always say,
honest.
when you go travel from Singapore to Chennai, and those people do not even keep the boombox down. But they think that the smugglers
Will take it.
Take that from Singapore to Chennai, they bring their boombox, they'll be holding it down. They don't
Really?
keep it down because they're afraid that somebody will take it.
Well, you're worried about it being stolen. That's a completely different issue.
Because the crowd from Singapore to Chennai is all lots of previously.
Oh.
Like smugglers, they carry only electronic stuff from Singapore to Chennai.
Ramana probably didn't know about that. You revise this verse otherwise.
It reminds me of one more analogy they give in Yoga Vasishtha. A rooster thinks that it's responsible for the sunrise.
Exactly. Same idea. Precisely.
But this when growing up, it's the Bommaya Gobrata Tangarde. That means the doll of the Gopuram will not be
holding it up.
Exactly.
So I think what he gave the example, we also presume a lot of that. Oh, I am the father. I need to set up the regulations to the family. Or we presume a lot of self-imposed disciplinaries, which is a nonsense actually.
Easy way out.
No, that's what, correct? We have this egoistic thing that, okay, I am the one who sets up everything. But whether you are there or not, your kid will eventually evolve, okay? But we have this, like a rooster, we think that, okay, I am the one waking up the entire world. The world wakes up either way.
I mean, but we should be clear, right? So the point, so the point is, whether it's not really about whether you should or should not set up rules. For example, right? Ramana does not take a position on that. Ramana is saying you should not imagine that you're the one who makes that decision. There's a decision. Should I tell my kids this or should I keep quiet, for example, right? That decision, Ramana doesn't say you should or you shouldn't. Ramana says that decision itself, the idea that you are the decider of that's what you should be disputing.
Yeah.
Very good example. I like this example a lot. Where I can't remember where it's from, but supposedly maybe someone might know better than me exactly what this example is from. But supposedly Ramana was two disciples came to him, and there was some kind of religious ceremony going to go on. And there was a dispute about whether the ceremonial vessels they were supposed to be gold or silver or something like this, So one of them said it should be gold, and another said it should be silver. And they came to him and they said, well, which one should it be? And Ramana said, well, if you guys were in agreement with yourselves, then I could accept either decision. But if you're going to be in conflict about it, I am not going to disturb my peace of mind by getting involved. But this is like a metaphor for the thoughts within ourselves that are in conflict, right? As long as our thoughts are in agreement with each other, then great. They'll do whatever they want. It won't even come to our attention. It's only coming to our attention when there's conflict. Like you resolve it now, right? It's coming to you and saying you resolve it. And we should be like Ramana that way and say, no, I'm not disturbing my inner peace by getting involved. You figure it out.
That's a great way.
It's a good solution for a lot of problems also.
Yeah.
It's something like we visit a doctor only when we are sick. A healthy person, okay, I feel like going to the doctor. I want to see why I'm so.
Exactly. Precisely.
Only a hypochondriac, right?
All right, let's do this. So let's do a little meditation exercise because I like incorporating these into it. Let's do 10 minutes together. Choose either surrender or self-inquiry, and let's do it for 10 minutes together and discuss. When these little 10-minute sessions end, feel free to continue doing the practice with your eyes open, and whatever I say, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's much less important than doing the practice. So just keep doing it, I would suggest. But that said, anyone want to share any experiences?
I was chasing the observer, took it out of the feeler of the silence or something, and so chasing it, and then I was able to follow. But then they focused on that one, and then what happens? suddenly some other things comes up. Say for example, AC makes noise or something like that. That feeling comes, and then that also from there. Okay, only that's observer. Then take two observers together, they chase them, and then finally you feel that.
Well, where's the two observers? Where's that coming from?
The thought of the silence, thought of the peace.
Sure.
That is the first feeling.
Okay.
That feeling from there, like I took that I, that or the observer or the witness out. Okay, I was chasing for a while.
Great.
5 minutes, not a problem. Then suddenly some other thing. Then my ear started to hear this AC noise. Then I said, okay, no, my ear, no, I don't even focus. It's fine. The ear is keen observation of the ear, and then everything stopped. Everything, I may be able to go back to the chaser of the peace of peace, as well as the chaser of the AC hearer. So that feeling, everything put together. Then okay, then I say okay, and I feel that I have reached the stage. I'm nowhere, nothing kind of a stage.
And then you keep going, right?
Yeah, I keep going.
Nowhere,
and
nothing,
again,
it's self-observed.
then I guess okay, I am like maybe I'm at the root with my field, with my. I start to feel. Suddenly I don't feel anything, I feel only the breath kind of a thing, and that also, if I don't focus, then that also disappears, the feeling. All the feelings, all the other distractions, they're all weak and gone, and I am able to come back to the original chasing of the first this one.
Yeah, exactly, because in that space of seeming nothingness, again, you note that I'm still here observing.
Still here, and then I need to go, and then why and maybe like that. Yeah, that's
right, perfect, exactly. So just keep chasing like that. Keep chasing, exactly.
Very similar. So the seeker, who is inquirer, it's like a recursive inquirer, the mirror concept, going into a deep hole, going. That feeling, and then the hum of the AC. I forgot where I am. Only the sound of the AC coming out. Then I came home, something noise is coming. Then it brought me up, and then I go back into I am nowhere, I am not anywhere. Very, very pleasure feeling thing. Very pleasant.
Yes.
Once you start getting it, then you won't open your eyes or get out.
Yeah, of course, exactly. And so into that same feeling to keep looking, looking. Who's observing this feeling?
Right.
Because that is the bliss feeling. That is a bliss feeling which is still,
right. The bliss feeling is so good, it's then that's what addicts you to go back and start doing it.
Yes, exactly, precisely.
So I had a very good movie playing on the screen. So which was, okay, if I was practicing inquiry while you were talking, while the discussion was going on, what would that scene look like? And then Arjuna, like the way he asked Krishna, tell me how does a Sthita Prajna sit, stand, do, what? So I was thinking, instead of a Sthita Prajna, like what the practicer of self-inquiry how do they sit, what do they do? So those kind of, that scene, movie was getting very, very interesting as it was playing out. And then I caught myself saying, okay, who's watching all that?
Yeah.
And then it was like, so I had this duality, and so this one, when I asked the that who said, I don't have all those questions, so it was a very interesting, so.
The who said, I don't have all those questions?
The who said, I don't have such questions about, like how does a practicer of self-inquiry, I was just visualizing if I was sitting and listening to you and I was practicing self-inquiry, then how would my attention be?
Well, but it's interesting what you said, that the who said that I don't have all such questions, right? But whoever it is that doesn't have those questions, that's another thought. You see that?
Yeah.
Which again,
but
you're
it was
observing.
the division was so, it was like just fascinating.
Well, there's multiple divisions, right? The
yeah.
first division between the scene that you played out, and then the division between that one and some other voice in your head which says, well, I don't have those questions actually.
Because when I ask myself, who's, like trying to get all those answers, when I try to ask the who, then it just appeared that this who has no other, I mean, it's like, so it was a very interesting movie that was playing out.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Exactly.
So, I mean, I guess this discussion, I was trying to envision what happens if I'm in, sitting, whatever, even if it is a stimulating, situation or something that I'm enjoying, and if I was practicing self-inquiry, I was trying to see, how that would, look.
Play out.
So,
Play out. Oh, great. That sounds
so
great.
that just appeared in this, and then, so.
Great.
But I don't have answers.
That's okay. You won't have answers for a while. That's unnatural.
I wasn't exactly practicing anything. So when I closed my eyes, I didn't have any thoughts. So just kind of blank. I was just blank. And I was observing that I was blank. Then I said, I should have some thoughts. Then I forced myself to listen to some calls going in the remote. Even those things I couldn't last beyond a few seconds.
Okay.
So even those thoughts were kind of going away, sort of. What was also interesting was that when I closed my eyes, I saw an eye looking at me. So I was kind of fascinated by that eye. Eye is not in this eye; it's eye.
Your
physical eye in my screen. Mental screen looking at me constantly and then staring at me. So I said, I also want to look at your eyes, so let me look at you. So it was going on like this for a few seconds. But bottom line is that most of the time, there was no thoughts.
Well, that would make it easier for you. So if you're not having any thoughts, then at that moment your mind is relatively quiet. So even better time to notice that you're observing this no thought situation. And so the observer should theoretically be, on the one hand subtler, but also on the other hand clearer, because there's no thoughts to give you the movement that agitates the mind. So in that moment to notice, it's not really no thoughts exactly. There is a subtle thought that's underneath it, which is I'm here observing the situation of no thought. And where is that? Where is that me, the observer of the no thought situation?
But even to have the idea of not having thoughts is also a thought.
That's okay. Yeah, you need that.
Yeah, but that is where that's where I'm struggling. How to separate, to have that subtle idea of not having a thought and I, who is observing even the thought. I'm not a differentiate. The final level. Even the thought of who is observing is also a thought. Correct?
Well, that's right. But you need that thought. So long as you're on this side of the divide between ignorance and knowledge, so to say, however you want to call that, you're going to have to bring in the inquiry and deliberately notice that there is experience going on, even in so-called peaceful, quiet, blissful, or no thought states, or void states, or nothing states, however you want to call it. All variety are there. You need to recognize it, because there is an observer, and you're right. It becomes very subtle, and therefore it becomes very tempting to say, there's no issue here. But you have to come in and start and notice that I'm still here as a noticer, and there's a riddle being, if you're doing inquiry anyway, there's a riddle. You're wondering, where am I? What is this I that is here? And so you have to deliberately bring that question in, basically. It doesn't have to be a verbal question.
Yeah.
It has to be noticing the fact of your observer status and how that's still unresolved.
Yeah, and yesterday I had an interesting experience. I stubbed my toe and I got physical pain. Okay, I just hit the toe. But when I started inquiring, when I separate myself from the body, for some time there's no pain.
Yeah, well, pain can decrease that way. Yeah, because
I that's really it was so excruciating. When you hit the toe, it's really you get very severe pain at that moment. But I started then immediately I thought of, let me do self-inquiry.
Good, that's good.
Then I started observing the pain. I don't know, biologically the pain might be there, but I think when I say that, okay, it's not me experiencing the pain, it's the body is experiencing and just observing.
Yeah.
Maybe it is because of the time it reduces the pain, or I don't know, the pain is not.
This is exactly you suggested, Farman, lady in the morning.
Yes. It was, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Someone in the morning asked about pain, and I said, there's really nothing but inquiry to do with it. And inquiry can have these powerful effects. It can, for multiple reasons. But yeah, I mean, a large part of the suffering of physical pain, and Ramana says this too, is our identification with the body, basically. Yeah. So makes sense. That's great. Great, you tried it.
Yeah.
And you saw the
Good
powerful
experience.
effect.
Like, when it's painful experience too, like something else. Yeah.
Yeah, probably 9/10 of the suffering, bodily suffering, is that.
Thinking about the pain itself multiplies the actual pain.
Yeah, because it's
Something
my
that
pain,
is-
my pain, my pain, my pain. That's the thing, right? Huh?
So I said, okay, I'll practice surrender. And then I realized I didn't know how to practice.
Ah.
Because I think I missed one of your
I should have given another
talks or
surrender
whatever.
instruction. My
Yeah, but
apologies.
so I switched to inquiry,
Uh-huh.
which I'm more familiar with, and also we discussed it today, so it was fresh in my memory. And I noticed that, like you had mentioned, try to locate the eye, right? Where am I? Locate the eye.
Huh?
And I noticed frustrated part coming up. An annoyed part came up first, and I'm like, where the F is this eye, right? So I basically just observed the frustration.
Yes.
I said, okay, I see you, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is like when you came to our house, we talked about IFS, right? Internal Family Systems.
Mhm.
This is the approach in IFS,
Mhm.
where you identify each of these as a part,
Mhm.
and then you unblend from the part.
Mhm.
Because a moment before I was frustrated.
Yeah.
And then I unblend and I'm observing the frustration. I'm
Exactly.
observing the annoyed part.
Yes.
So I kind of did that, and then also I observed there is the hearing part, the one that was hearing kind of the heating come on and other sounds, and then I closed my eyes and I was like, I wanted to cut out the visual stimulation. I don't know if that made it easier, but basically the thoughts abated, right? And there was some stillness. But at that point, you're saying that we want to still have the inquiry running of who is observing the stillness.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So you don't want to blend with the stillness.
Correct, you do not want to blend with the stillness. In fact, you want to deliberately unblend with it if you're blended with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And notice it too, just like the frustration is a state in your mind, the same way the stillness is a state in your mind. And so
Right, but then when I do that, when I observe the stillness of the mind, the thoughts come rushing in.
well, I mean, then you have to repeat the exercise. That's okay. Thoughts will come in, and then again, who's observing the thoughts, and then again you'll come to stillness, and eventually you'll hold the stillness longer. And then when you hold the stillness longer, then you can hold it and again say, who's observing the stillness? Because basically, again, the stillness is like, it's like you're asking yourself a question, right? I'm sure that I said this before, but you're asking yourself a question, who am I? And in response, you're getting, someone is presenting a mirror to you. That's the answer they're giving you. And that mirror is like the stillness. The stillness is a mirror. But the thing is, it's not exactly that you're the reflection in the mirror, right? Like, when you look in the mirror, you're not literally the image in the mirror. You have to recognize the image in the mirror is a reflection of me. It's not me, exactly. So that's why we look at the stillness and we try to say, who's experiencing stillness? Who is experiencing the stillness? Who is experiencing the bliss? Who is experiencing the peace? Peace, bliss, stillness, all of these are reflections of the self, right? Because they are temporary states that have beginnings and ends, which are, they're related to what we are, but they're just momentary phenomena, versus what they are actually reflecting is eternal.
So are you saying unblend from?
Yeah, unblend.
Unblend from the stillness,
All of
unblend
these.
from the bliss,
Yes,
unblend
yes.
from
Yes.
that itself as an experience.
Yes.
Right? Recognize that itself as an experience.
Yes. Keep unblending, keep unblending, keep unblending. If you're doing surrender, it would just be keep recognizing that unblending process. Just keep detaching yourself and recognizing this too is an experience, this too is an experience. And as you do that, the experience you get will be subtler and subtler and subtler. It'll become more and more like nothing, 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 nothing. And you keep detaching. Never allowing yourself to fall in, or if you do fall in, immediately pull yourself out. You know, that process is the surrender process, which is just the flip side of the coin of inquiry, because, you know.
But how do you do this when navigating, like I can see myself doing this sitting quietly in meditation for like an hour
Of
or
course.
whatever, right?
Yes.
But then you're saying to practice this throughout the day.
The way you should do it is, essentially, for example, with surrender, or inquiry for that matter, is, you know, you can imagine yourself, there's a little fantasy is, you know, you're sitting in a cave somewhere, and this is all one big hallucination. One big, you know, projection. And so your job is to focus on not being drawn in to believing that the projection is real. But it's very difficult because our deep ingrained habits are that the projection is real and that we are part of it and that all the things that flow from that. So the whole game is, can I keep myself awake? Don't fall asleep into the dream, but keep poking myself awake again and again and again, 100,000, 10,000 times, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in light of this, we face so many happy situations, sad situations. How do we discuss it when thinking about this? Will that whatever we are experiencing, that we are not experienced. For example, we do enjoy little doing simple pleasures in life. But when the light of this inquiring process, are we not losing that? That's what I...
Well, that's okay. I mean, you know, but you're gaining something infinitely more important, you know? So again, even if you do have those simple pleasures, yeah, you know, the thing is, it's because those pleasures are really, you know, I mean, this is getting just a touch of theory, but, you know, the idea is, right, the mind is a surface, and, you know, it ripples, right? And so, you know, when a thought comes, it ripples, and, you know, what we experience as unhappiness is the agitation of the mind, and what we experience as bliss is its quieting. And so when we experience pleasure, it's a quieting of a ripple that was, maybe we didn't even see that was there, but it was there. So, you know, when we content ourselves with these small, simple pleasures, we're contenting ourselves with a small quieting of a ripple. But, you know, that stillness is actually something which is just a borrowing from, you know, the deep inner stillness that's there, basically. It's a temporary, measure, basically. Yeah, you're only getting, it's like there's a, what is it, I mean, these metaphors have been made before. I mean, basically, it's like, you know, the title of one of those books, Crumbs from His Table, right? You're contenting yourself with a crumb, basically, when the cake is there.
Yeah, so she sits with ocean, the bubble on the ocean, that's what is the pleasure you get.
Yeah.
All he says, all the happiness, your education, family, everything is like one bubble in the ocean.
Yeah.
That's what you're feeling.
One wave.
Everything is good.
Exactly.
So the one bubble goes, so imagine the ocean itself, that's a bliss. That's a real self.
So this is what exactly Buddha's teaching in Vipassana I learned. So we have these cravings, like you mentioned, correct? Like, you know, like when you eat some good food, you develop the craving, you enjoy that, correct?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like on the other side, like, if you get small heart, you get pain. But the equanimity is like, you know, where you are able to see these two. If you are not affected by this, is the pleasure or by the pain, that's where the higher bliss, like Akilesh just said, like, you know, what you're experiencing is like a small bubble, like, you know, this the pleasure generated out of the craving. But when the mind gets equanimity, like, you know, like an observer mode, observer has no pleasure or pain, he just observes. That is where you have the highest state of bliss. So, but we got trapped into the, like, you know,
I mean, you can view it as, you know, there's a spectrum of things, right? There are certain things that are, you know, give very, like, not great pleasure, and then, you know, they you know, and then they become subtler and subtler and subtler, right? Where, you know, maybe art and music and certain kinds of relationships and all that give us subtler and subtler pleasure, right? And then really, right, probably the thing that would give us the most direct pleasure as an activity is something like concentration. any kind of concentration activity will still the mind, and that stillness you're kind of getting direct access to bliss, right? That's why so many meditation methods work, pranayama works. Any kind of concentration activity will make the mind one-pointed. The one-pointedness will give you direct access to bliss.
Long chanting.
Yeah, long chanting. But then this is our pursuit of moksha is one step further, because we don't want a bliss, even the highest bliss, which requires us to do this activity of concentration to get there. We just want recognition that we are bliss eternally, continuously, and effortlessly all the time. So we're going one step further than this, basically.
So unblending from pleasure also helps us unblend from pain.
Of course,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yes,
Yes, because both are tied. They're both
On the
the
spectrum.
things that are creating the identity.
There's just different sides.
Different sides of it, exactly.
Yeah,
Correct.
on the spectrum.
100%. Exactly. All right, well, we're at the end of our time today, so thank you all so much for coming. And we've got meditation tomorrow at 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific, and tomorrow satsang again, 7:30 to 9, same idea.
It's at our home, all of you please come.
Yes. And also a workshop on Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.